Hello and welcome! Today we're diving into something really fascinating, how the culture we live in can literally shape the words we use every single day. We're going to explore this by looking at the communitarian side of life, and it all starts with a very interesting puzzle.
Okay, so let's jump right in with a question that might sound, well, pretty strange to an English speaker. In Korean, it's totally normal for a man to refer to his wife as 우리 마누라, which translates to our wife. Now, you can imagine that sounds like it could lead to some really awkward situations, right? So what is the deal with that? To figure it out, we're going to have to look for some clues.
And that's our next step. We're going to put on our cultural detective hats and follow some clues that are hidden in plain sight in everyday Korean life. And as you'll see, they all point to one thing: the incredible importance of community.
So, our very first clue is something you've probably seen 100 times, but maybe never really thought about. Think of names like Kim Yuna or Sun Hangmin. The family name, the Kim or the Sun, it always comes first.
When you put the two styles side by side, it really highlights a huge difference in thinking. In most Western cultures, we put the first name first. The emphasis is on the individual's identity. But in the Korean style, the family name leads the way. And this isn't just some random rule, It's a cultural statement. It's saying that the family, the community, the collective, that comes before the individual. It's a subtle clue for sure, but a really powerful one.
All right, for our next clue, we're moving from names to the dinner table. Let's talk about jjigae culture. Now, jjigae is this amazing, hearty Korean stew, but it's how people traditionally eat it that tells a much, much bigger story.
You see, traditionally, a big, bubbling pot of jjigae is placed right in the middle of the table, and everyone at the meal shares directly from that one pot, dipping their own spoons right in. The whole point of this is that the act itself is a physical symbol of community. It completely breaks down the walls between what's yours and what's mine. It's this delicious, real-world expression of communal life. In fact, the author of our source material thinks it's a value we should really try to bring back today.
So, we've looked at clues in how people are named and how they eat. And when you put them all together, they solve our little mystery. They all point to one single, central idea. In this culture, it's very often we before I. And this brings us right back to where we started. When a Korean man says our wife, he's not suggesting he shares his wife with you. The we he's using isn't about him and other husbands, it represents the entire family unit. She is the wife of our family. It's just a perfect example of how language does so much more than communicate, it's a mirror that reflects the deepest values of a culture.
Okay, so we get the what now, but our source material goes even deeper and asks why? Why is community so important in the first place? Well, it suggests that there's actually a theological reason why human beings are, at our very core, relational.
So the author argues that this cultural value isn't just something society made up. They believe it's actually rooted in a core idea from the Christian Bible about what God is like, and in turn, what we are like. Okay, let's break down this logic. It's a pretty straightforward three-step argument. First, the Christian concept of God isn't a single solitary being. God is a community, the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Second, the book of Genesis says that humans were created in God's image. So third, if you put those two ideas together, it follows that if we're made in the image of a communal God, then we must also be designed to be relational, communal beings ourselves.
And that's the really powerful conclusion from this line of thinking. We weren't designed to be a bunch of isolated islands, each just living out our own separate lives. According to this view, our very nature, our design, is to live together, in community, in relationship with each other. So let's take this big idea of community and see how it applies more broadly. The author brings in a concept that's super important for any kind of healthy relationship, and they call it we-ness.
This idea actually comes from the famous family therapist Virginia Satir. Her whole point was that any strong relationship doesn't just have two parts, it has three. There's you, there's me, and then there's this third thing which is just as real, the we or the us. And for love to really work, you have to make room for all three of them.
Yeah, this visual just makes it so clear. A healthy relationship isn't about one person getting lost in the other, and it's not about two totally separate people who just happen to be together. It's about finding that amazing balance between your own identity, their identity, and that shared identity that you build together, that us.
But here's the catch that our source material points out. Modern society, it seems, is constantly pushing us toward radical individualism. That mindset of just, I am me and you are you. And when that happens, that crucial we part, that shared space, it starts to get smaller and smaller.
And that brings us right back to this core value.
The author wraps up with this really beautiful verse from the Psalms. And notice, it doesn't praise being a lone wolf or having solitary strength. It celebrates the goodness and the pleasantness that you can only find when people live together in unity.
So, as we finish up, it leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. In our own lives, in our families, our friendships, our neighborhoods, what place does we actually hold? Thanks so much for joining me for this one.